So, Shawn, I'm going to give you the floor. First of all, I just want to welcome everyone to our, webinar here. We'll be discussing today, rethinking your event pricing and revenue streams on the next big thing. And basically, let me introduce our wonderful guest, Shawn Cheng, joining us from Vancouver. Shawn recently just joined the Dahlia Agency. Wonderful partners of ours, which is a brand and experience and marketing agency. Shawn is a learnaholic. I love that term. And he's also the co-founder of what we were just talking about, Event Professionals Break Shit, which is a really great organization that helped give feedback to many of the great platforms we have today. And Shawn was recently named 40 under 40 by Connext and BizBash. So again, it's a privilege to have you here, Shawn. Thank you for joining us. Really looking forward to elaborating on your topic. Having said that, the floor is yours, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the nice introduction. Hello, everyone, and no matter who, I hope you have a good day so far. If you can, welcome to putting in the chat and let me know where you are listening or watching from. If you think that is too boring of the question, you're also welcome to putting what are you drinking right now. For me, I'm based in Vancouver, Canada. Therefore, it is only coffee for me. But I mean, ask me probably in 2 hours. We'll see how that go. But welcome everyone. My name is Shawn Cheng. My pronoun is he and his. I am a Taiwanese, but I'm based in Vancouver, Canada, and I've lived in Canada for over 7 decades right now. I am a senior strategist with DAHLIA+Agency, and then, but previous to that, I was with another global event agency for many years, mainly handle association and international conference and congress. So just want to give everyone just a little background of kind of where I'm coming from. The topic today is about rethinking your event pricing and revenue stream. And I was in debate, honestly, for the past few days, should I put together a very nice slide with a lot of information and, beautiful graphic, or should I, using different tool like polling or question or gaming to engage with everyone. At the end, I just need to be very honest. My laziness kind of kicking. So therefore, I only have very basic slide that I'm going to share today, which is basically the topic I'm going to talk about, which I'm going to share the screen right now. But that being said, I would like to turn the session today. And I know. Eventcombo want this to be a session, but I will actually really want to turn this time to be more a dialogue and conversation. So what I will commit on the call today is I will do my best to answer almost every question that I have in the chat. And therefore, please fly away. I know this is a topic that resonates with a lot of us, and if you're listening today, I'm sure you have millions of questions that you would like to have a discussion. So I really want to turn this to be that format. But quickly looking at the chat, I can see a lot of the people are drinking the coffee. Hello, MW from Chicago, and I can see Sina coming in from Germany and drinking water. I mean, it should be in the evening, right? Drinking water. But welcome to put them in, and then we can kind of keep the conversation going. For those of you who enjoy my entertainment so far, welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. Or after this session, if you have any additional question, or if there are things that you would like to talk, or you just simply think I'm a nice guy and want to connect with me, here is my QR code for my LinkedIn profile. Simply put on your phone and then just scan that you can connect with me. Today is going to be very simple. Here are the things I am hoping we can talk about, which is everything about the money. What I would do is I will basically just go through this with my thought. But what I mentioned is I will also keep my eyes on the chat. Therefore, if there are any question popping up, I will stop and hope to answer those questions. And hello, Aria. It's very good to see you. It's been a while. So let's talk about money. The reality check is, I think many of us right now, if you are in a position of managing or organized events, you probably experience the following. Number one, you've been very busy. You probably experienced the most busy season so far for the past 3-5 years. It's probably even crazier than 2019 or 2018, with a lot of the events demands coming up. Because you are not just planning what you used to do for the past 2 years online, but you're starting to do in person. A lot of you probably starting to bring the biggest conference, your annual trade show coming back, and there's a lot of these things going on. And a lot of us probably experience challenge on sponsorship because a lot of the sponsorship right now, they still are not coming back, or when they're coming back, they a bit difficult to deal with now, with a lot of additional questions. They're really more focusing on the dollar value, what exactly they can get out of it. Registration wise, you probably experience fairly comfortable the value in terms of registration. What I heard so far is many of the show see a good amount of registration coming in. And this is directly reflect on the reality is everyone are not able to meet in person for the past 2 years, and therefore this year it's the revenge travel, it's the revenge events, it's the revenge everything, and you see that desire of meet again within your own professional community. So I'm pretty sure that you see registration number are okay, but I was assuming a lot of you are also worried actually about whether this is the number will stay for the next year or the next couple of years. Because there are ongoing concern is after this year, after the first back to in-person events, will people continue to coming back, or they will starting to fading away within the virtual or other kind of channel in terms of learning or networking. This is also a big thing, I think, in a lot of the corporation, because a lot of the corporation this day are adapting into the hybrid workforce. Therefore, they are cutting the budget in terms for hosting their internal events. They are also even cutting the budget in terms of sending their staff to travel for business events, because there are another option right now out in the market that can be a potential. And so all in all, I think we are all facing challenge in terms for the revenue stream wise. Is if you stay with the traditional model, which is heavily depending on sponsorship for one-off events, or heavily depending on the registration for one-off events, you are going to experience some challenge. And I think that also what reflect to a lot of event professional is, although you are busier than ever right now, a lot of us probably not received enough respect or the credit that you feel you desire, because a lot of the company right now, they don't see you as the one who bring money. And I think that is kind of a challenge a lot of us are facing. So all in all, I think that is kind of why I think the session today is important, that I would like to talk about, because number one is we are important. As an event professional, if your job is within your organization, whether it's association or company, organizing events, you are important, because your job is not simply put together a nice experience or party. Your job is actually revenue driven. That's actually your job. Whether it's true on the company depending on you to organize this event to drive money, or the event is more a sales funnel for selling the end product, you are actually a very critical piece on the table to have those strategy discussions. So I think the first things to have in mind is you are important. Don't forget about it. And that means we need to reposition ourselves within the team from a nice to have person, which is the person who organizes logistics, to a must-have person, which is the person on the table talking about pricing and strategy. And therefore, I hope this will kind of lay down a really good opening for this kind of 1 hour for us to dive into some of the strategy or option or type that you can, take that and maybe bring back to your team, because this is how you change the conversation. When you're talking to the C-level, your boss, you are not talking about what a great experience or what an amazing lunch you're going to host, right? You're going to talk about actually the dollar value and how they're going to drive the bottom line of your company. So first off, let's talking about registration. If you can put them in the chat and just simply let other people know that if you charge registration to your events, like is your event a paid event, I think that so we can kind of see how everyone's pace are. When we're talking about registration, there are ongoing debate is, do we charge or do we not charge, right? And we're starting from, is virtual event should be free or virtual event should charge? If we charge, should it be the same as our in-person or should it be cheaper? I think right now the common practice is virtual event is usually free or significantly cheaper than the in-person. That is what the common practice are. My suggestion is it depends. It's really depending on what type of your events you're hosting and why you're hosting this event. So it is very important is for you as an event professional, before you dive into the number, is actually diving to the why. Is why you are putting this event together. What this event position in terms for in your entire organization strategy. Is your events the main revenue-driven engine, like many associations are, or this is the event that will filter in to engage with a lot of the potential customer for your company, so your company will be able to make the sale at the end. Or this is the event is about making a statement because you want to create brand awareness. Those are all different purpose that the event is happening, and that should be kind of the core foundation to drive your registration strategy. It is okay to make the event free if that serves a better purpose later on. Maybe when you put the event as the free events, then you can drive more people. But once they're here, make sure you're able to kind of filter them into different categories so you can give them the experience you want. At the same time, continue to achieve what you want in terms of lead gen or so on. It's also okay to charge your virtual event the same price as in person or even more. Because if you are able to guarantee the quality of the experience and the content is actually, if not the same, even more in terms for the in-person event you put together in the past, then I don't see there's any reason of not charging more. Because there are two different, I would say, mindset when you kind of decide how your revenue stream going to look like in terms of percentage, right? If your event is heavily based on sponsorship, which I think some of them are in the chat, then that means the goal is to get as many people as possible in the room, or get as many quality people as possible in the room for those sponsors that pay your events, right? That is kind of the decision factor. On the other hand, if your event are able to not solely based on sponsorship, but based on the registration, then your focus is to make sure you provide the quality in content that your attendee and guests are looking for. So it's not really about what the sponsors think anymore, it's about what your audience think anymore. So I think those are kind of the very important feature to ask those questions before you kind of tapping into what type of pricing you are doing. Talking about registration pricing, there are also a few different new ways that I observe people are doing in the market. Some of them are successful, some of them are still very experiential, but I think those are all worth for you to consider even just in the discussion phase. So the first one is the tier registration pricing. So I think a lot of us are very experienced. A lot of us are very experienced about, you have the early bird rate, you have the regular rate, and you have the late bird rate or the last minute rate. A lot of us even have the super early bird rate or the super early bird rate. And that's kind of what the usual way that we do is that's kind of the usual strategy on registration, and that's kind of drive your marketing. So far, I see a lot of the companies, especially in the tech space, they are using a tier pricing, which I think is very important, which I think is quite interesting. So instead of have the early bird or regular, you just have tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. And the tier 1 you set with a certain amount of tickets, and once that amount achieved, automatically the system will jump into tier 2. So this will give you, I can see a few benefits of this model is, number one is this gives you a bit more ability to capture, potentially capture more revenue than the early bird and regular model. And then also this will actually help your marketing message a bit as well, because I think traditionally we are struggle with, we're doing a big push on early bird, but we also know the reality right now is people are making the decision later than usual. So in the past, you can have early bird, let's say 6 months out, but right now that probably need to cut it into 3 months. And then therefore you are worrying about whether you're going to meet a number or not. And we see a significant drop in terms of registration after the early bird. That's just a common practice, right? If you do tier price, on the other hand, is, it's okay even the tier 1 is finished, because you can always have tier 2 that is just slightly more expensive than tier 1. So for those people who maybe missed the tier 1 pricing but still continue to come, it's still not as dramatic of the jump as the full price, and only in a slightly increase. I think that will actually help a lot of people to maybe continue to come in, and this actually will kind of resolve in the issue of people making decisions late. So I do suggest that maybe take a time to visit and kind of experience this type of model if that makes sense for your company. Another thing what I think a different organization are using, I think is also very worth to consider, is the referral program, which is turn your attendee into your sales engine. So I know a lot of the company have been using the peer promotion campaign. So once you registration, there's option for you to share your registration information on your social or your network. So hopefully their friends with their network will see and then register, right? But I think this also worth to even take this step further, is to actually offer incentive dollar to your registered attendee. So for example, if they are able to bring in 5 more people onto their account, they get a rebate, or they can get something special on the event side. They become kind of your super user, for example. I think this is actually another good way in terms for, I think the reality we are all facing right now is we are all struggle with staffing. Your marketing dollar might be cut already, and you might have millions of things to do. So instead of you trying to do everything, maybe it's not a bad idea to try to see if you can turn your attendee and guests to become part of that process. There are a lot of the tool out there in the market that can help facilitate that process. For example, there is a Canadian Montreal-based company called Snowball that many of you guys might heard about, that they are especially specialize in this type of marketing campaign, like that can support this type of action. Another registration, I would say, method that I haven't seen much in the event space, but this has become a common practice now in the e-commerce and B2C space, which I feel is worth for us to explore and consider. That is the buy now, pay later model. And I'm really curious if anyone who are listening are consider this or doing that. For those of you who don't know, buy now, pay later is a model of once you purchase the item, you have the option not pay the full amount right away. That you the fintech structure that will help you to define your payment structure to, let's say, maybe for the next 6 months without interesting rate, that you simply pay every month with the agreement number. This has been a very common practice, I will say, right now with a lot of the online shopping model. A lot of the company adopt this model. I can see a few benefits of us to using it. Number one is if your events are targeting massive registration, this is another good way of helping people to ease their decision process. And secondly, if your event are targeting younger or kind of emerging professional in the market, instead of scare them away with the full amount or hoping they will get a scholarship or support from their company to pay the registration, a buy now, pay later model, although they are still paying the same amount, this is kind of just a sales package that they won't feel that way because they divide in the payment to it. And then if you can marketing yourself as this is the right investment for your career growth, there might be a good attractiveness into this model. So instead of I am thinking about paying $600-700 to attend this event to grow your career, or I'm paying $10 for the next 6 months to grow my career. I think they are very two different message, and I will argue the second one is more attractive. The last two things I would like to kind of mention on registration before we jump into some of the question is, I know this might sound silly that I mentioned this right now, but I also feel it is worth for us to start looking at crypto payment as one of the options for registration. Yes, the crypto market is kind of in the collapse and chaotic space right now, so I'm definitely not saying do it now. But you cannot avoid the fact that I think many of us or many of your guests have crypto investment have become part of their portfolio. And then a lot of the company right now starting to looking at way of bringing crypto into the payments structure. So it is worth to consider to, I don't think it's a very soon situation, but it's definitely worth to keep an eye on to see how that goes. Especially if there are any listeners who are in the innovation or crypto or blockchain space. Like I always argue that if you're doing fintech or technology events, then how can you not have a crypto payment? And that applied to NFT, right? So for those of you who do not know, NFT stands for non-fugitive token. I am not an NFT expert, but it is definitely a very hot topic right now. That is, in a very unprofessional way, I would say NFT basically turned your ticket to become a valuable asset that you can hold. So it has been, there's a lot of experiential right now in the NFT space from the art or from the sport events that you buying the ticket, but that ticket becomes a valuable item that you can either resell later or continue kind of nourish the value from it. And so this is something I think from event space definitely worth to consider as well is how can you not make your event just a one-off, right? If your event is not a one-off, can your ticket become something valuable for the future? So before we jump into sponsorship, I'm gonna take a quick glance in the chat and see if I can answer a few questions. So a question about is crypto investment safe? I am not expert on the investing, so I cannot answer that question. But I will say I personally have crypto investments, and even and then like I am in the learning phase, and so I will say a lot of us are are into this space. Is definitely worth to consider. What is the URL? Okay, so thanks Dina to sharing the snowball. What are the best way to add a new revenue stream? We were talking about a few other revenue streams besides registration and sponsor, but I would say the best way to do it is to introduce slowly. I am a very conservative person, so I don't like to do things too dramatically. I'm pretty sure your client, your boss are like me. So what I would do is I will introduce one smaller, almost like a pilot project to see how you go. And then if you see traction, then you expand that. And then I can see there's a question about how do I start to shift away from only sponsorship so that I can preserve the integrity of the program or balance it out. I think what I would start doing is to start charging the attendee, even just a smaller amount, right? Or another thing is you keep the events free, that's what you are right now. But once the attendee come, you offer them some premium content or experience that attendee need to pay. I think this is a good way for you to almost using it as the marketing research to validate if there are any potential that you can kind of lower it. Because what I can see what happen will be if you see some good positive traction, you might, because I don't know your situation, because it might be, you might launch a different product with different events along your portfolio that is going to be solely based on registration, less on sponsorship. But instead of launching that right away, I will using your current event as a prototype testing environment to see if there are window and opportunity out there. So let's quickly moving on then to the next part, which is equally important, the sponsorship. I think we are all agree. Sponsorship is important, whether you do it or not. But I think I also will argue. I think sponsorship right now is already. This is a topic have been discussed multiple times. That this is already not. We already past the time that people simply give you money, so they can have their logo on the screen, right? We can all agree this is already last century's luxury. Right now, we all need to spend more time to convince the sponsorship their investment is valuable to your events. I will like to say I like to treat all the sponsorship as partnership because that is how you change the conversation. I think every sponsorship should be customizable and should be unique to the sponsor. It is good and it is important to have a baseline perspective, in my opinion, that lay out what's your event is about and who you attract and why they are important for your potential sponsors to be part of it. And it's important to kind of listing variety of different options that the sponsor can potentially do. But all those things are really more a way for you to let them envision what they can do, so they can have a conversation with you. When I used to handle sponsorship, what I always like to do first is to have a discovery call with the sponsor, and on the call is really them talking, because it is important for as an event organizer to understand why those sponsors are even considered sponsoring your events, and then you digest those information and go back with a proposal of what kind of item you can offer to them so they can achieve what they want to achieve. So some of them might be is still brand awareness, and therefore the logo on the screen is important, right? But for some of them, they probably don't want their logo on screen because of the pharma code or something, but they want to have the chance to in a room and talking to their potential buyer, and therefore a curated, a small group VIP session might be more appealing to them, right? So there are a few different. The only way for you to know those is to have that conversation in this discovery phase, and I think that actually very important to bring that up is, and I think a lot of the event professionals here will agree, is it is equally important to have event manager and event person to be part of those sponsorship discovery calls. The reason I bring to that is this was coming from a personal experience, but I can't count how many times that I roll my eyes when I see a sponsorship coming in from our salespeople, and then I need to go back and say, this is not doable, right? What you are promised is not doable, or they are. This is not really what they want, right? I think it's important to including the event person in the sponsorship discovery, so that person can, number one, be your gatekeeper to kind of make sure whatever we promise is deliverable. But the second part is actually make the sponsor feel special, because the sponsor will know that this is not just a cold calling situation. It's the event people actually want to know about it, and you will design something that will tailor and match what they want to achieve. Another thing on the sponsorship is, I know there are millions of talking about, whether the traditional tier sponsorship is that, so the gold, silver level, or everyone should come up with a different name or some sort. I think it's debatable and really depending on the situation. I do like to bring up an example that I did actually last year, that I designed a sponsorship package for a client that I think is very interesting. Is, of course, instead of calling them sponsorship, we're calling them partnership. But we are really messaging in this way is, instead of we go to the sponsor and tell them, we have this amazing events that can do a lot of different things, so you should give us money. We go to them and tell them we have this amazing events, and we are looking for partner to help us to make them happen. So we are looking for partner that can help us to bring more young people to the events. We are looking for partner to help us to highlight some of the important research that the clients' fields are doing. We are looking for partner who help us to bring the important people into the group. If you think about them, they kind of just a sales language, right? Because that basically means we are looking for sponsor for advertising. We're looking for sponsor symposium. We're looking for sponsor for travel scholarship, right? That is basically what we're looking for. But we're framing in a different way that the sponsor actually light up their eyes because they suddenly have more idea about it. Right? I remember we're talking to a sponsor about how we can bring more young people to the events, and they lighting up. They come up with 2-3 new idea that we didn't thinking about, and we think is brilliant. And because those ideas are coming from there, just naturally the next question is how much you want to pay for it. Actually, it's not even how much you want to pay for it, it's how much you can pay for it. So you can see that kind of drive a conversation in a different way. And I think the benefit for this is at the end, you will find your sponsor going to be more engaged with you during the process, because they are not just pick an item from your menu and then complain about why it didn't achieve what they want to achieve. They are going to be part of your journey of designing that deliverable with you. And so they will be more involved, and you will find the conversation has become more positive toward rather than a very transaction discussion. So that is kind of, I think, on the sponsor. I think there are a lot of other idea or session about sponsorship that can be another 2-hour things. But I think those that kind of cover some basic, I think it's worth everyone to consider. I will like to take kind of I think there's 2 more question here. Is about when you are considering a new revenue stream, how to evaluate whether or not it fits within the value props you want to communicate to your customer. That is a great question, by the way. I think when you introduce a new revenue stream, the very important thing is to always to actually ask that question is how can you value this seed? What is the differential factor for you to decide whether this is successful or not? So ask that question. I will like to add on to that is be patient. That I usually will advise the client is if you are introducing something new, don't kill it when you don't work at the first year. There are many different reasons why it might not work at the way you want. Be patient to give them a few more time so you can really understand whether this method is work or not. And I think there's another question is what basis should one choose the event revenue model? I will simply say that kind of come down to why, right? Come down to why your event exists and what your company want you to achieve by putting on this event. And we have that discussion earlier. So that was driving on whether your event is heavily depending on sponsorship or heavily depending on individual contribution, right? Looking at the way here, I changed the word registration to individual contribution because that kind of a nice segue into kind of the last part about the other revenue streams. There are other ways you can and you should consider making money from your event besides registration and sponsorship. Your event is not just a one-off. No matter whether what your job title are saying, your event is never a one-off. Maybe your event is the biggest revenue stream for the company, or maybe they are just part of the strategy. They'll always be part of the overarching, they'll always be part of the bigger picture. So looking at where your events stand with your organization and looking beyond it, right? So are there anything before the events that makes sense for you to do? And are there anything after the event that makes sense for you to do? This is not simply about creating a 365 community that simple. I know for a lot of the organization or company, it makes sense. But sometimes it doesn't make sense to spend time and effort to continue create a community to engage with your audience. Sometimes it might make sense more is to see the pre-event more like a leading up marketing campaign to drive to the excitement and the hype to the final events. Or the event is actually the kickoff for a new product your company going to launch ongoing, whether it is a certificate program or that is the library of resource that you would like your audience or your member to continue to use to engage. And all of those are potential revenue stream, right? The pre-event webinar can be free, but usually are free because their purpose is marketing. But all those pre-event webinar or events are a good sponsorship opportunity that your sponsor can start to engage with their prospect earlier. The post-events session or recap are also a good sponsorship item because they are also you can keep the conversation going. And talking about the content, I think it's important to repurpose your content for no matter what type of events you are doing. When I'm talking about repurpose, it's not simply on demand, right? Because that is too easy, right? And we all know, although it's nice to have on demand, but no one would really watch the full amount after it, right? But the repurpose your content is really taking the content that you have generated from the event and see if you can create something new out of it. For example, maybe you take the track, you have a track of session with different breakout. Maybe you take that and actually turn them into an insight analysis for that particular track of knowledge. Or you take the keynote session and turn them into a white paper because of what the speaker are talking. And all those items are additional value that you can either provide to your member as a value on, or you can sell to them because it's worth for them to pay for. All of those are also another good sponsorship opportunity that people can use and to continue to engage with what they want to engage. Another thing is to consider is if your event can be repositioned. Thinking about this way is if you are putting together in-person events, that means you need to have a venue and you need to host your event in a city, right? We are so used to doing B2B events that we come into a city and we close the door and in 3 days and we leave, right? We have some time for the attendee to enjoy the city or surrounding, but that's about it. There are no connection between you and the destination. Right now, we're going back to in-person. Have that in mind and consider is to what else you can do, like what kind of the lasting impact you are creating to the local community. Is your trade show floor can potentially open for a day for the public? Or can you have a day that you actually have one of your speakers talking to the public? Can you do a parade of your public? Can you do a workshop? Can you do a hospital visit? All of those things you can consider to not just do your own business within your own professional community and audience, but how your group can engage with the larger local community and destination. And the reason for that is not just because it's the right things to do by creating lasting impact, but all of them are a new different revenue opportunity for you. For example, you might able to apply some of the local government grant right now because you're doing something for the public interest. You might open a whole new different exhibition category because your show right now is part B2B but part consumer. You might actually be able to engage with a lot of the local community group that are maybe the artist group or the environmentally group that have their own revenue source that potentially can bring onto the table. So, looking beyond who you are, I think is another important thing to have. I would like to kind of close up on the other revenue stream part is to, I think right now we are in the hype of going back to normal or kind of doing things what we used to do and like to do. And a lot of us kind of forgetting about the digital part. I will say it's not everyone here because, you still listen to me talking to a screen. But have a digital first mindset and strategy, I think is going to be critical moving forward in terms for your revenue stream. Digital first doesn't mean digital only. Digital first simply means thinking about your event or your product from a consumer perspective. And if you're thinking about that, everyone is digital first person. The first thing we wake up is to check our phone. This is not about the generation, not about the age, and not about the geographic. My mom checked her iPad more time than me. On the dining table, it's me need to tell my parents to put their phone away. This is kind of the reality we're living in. We are all in a digital first world. And for the past 2 years during the pandemic, we become more familiar and more comfortable about consuming content and have experience digitally and virtually in a professional setting. And so I think moving forward, it is important to consider your event strategy to always have the digital element into it. They are not necessarily mean you need to have hybrid event. That doesn't necessarily mean you need to have both community hand in hand happening at the same time. Sometimes it simply just means that you need to thinking about your user experience and make sure they are digital friendly and make sure you have you taking care of that group of audience, right? When we're talking about revenue stream is. I saw a lot of the event right now that are wasting the massive international audience they built in the past because it's digital. Right now, they are only virtual, and 80% of those people, they're just not going to come because of the travel challenge, right? So make sure you have that in mind. And if we're talking about money, let's not forget the audience that you already earned for the past 2 years. So to wrap it up, I am just going to summarize of what we just talking about. So I just hope like today, although it's really me talking, here are the few things that we covered earlier, and I really hope we can go and everyone to make some money. If you have any more questions, please do let me know and put it in the chat. I hope I did answer most of it. Oh, I got a question. Should an event offer different level of products or services at different price point? That is an interesting question. I will say maybe we're not saying different level of product or service, but more different level of experience. I do agree. I think sometimes it makes sense to give people the basic level price with the basic offering that is attractive enough. But then I see no wrong of you try to increase the price if you offer something more premium or more exclusive. And if you do like to keep connect with me, this QR code, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. You're welcome to follow me on Twitter, and if you want to email me, that is my email address. And also, just like the host mentioned earlier, is I am also co-founder of a fun project called Eventcombo, which is we gather event professional like you occasionally and try to breaking some technology, basically. And so welcome to check out our website, follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. And last but not least, if you do like to talk more about your specific need with us, DAHLIA+Agency, we are a true believer about content is your new currency, and you are in a good position of turning to be more than just a party planner, and we're happy to here to help and support you. With that is basically it.
Thank you for that wonderful presentation, Shawn. Very happy that you did not break anything today. Although I know you tried, but you did not break anything. Thank you for that, Shawn. Such insightful, experience-based, guidance from you and inputs from you on pricing. Many wonderful ideas exchanged. Shawn, just one question for you. With the current dynamic, we're now in a second reset, as I call it. COVID was the first reset, and now we're in the post-pandemic reset of our industry. Where do you think, it's a prediction question I'm asking you, and then we'll wrap it up. Where do you think we're headed in terms of virtual and in-person ratios? Do you think we're going to be 70% in person, 30% virtual? Do you think it's going to be 50-50? What's your prediction on that in the next 2-3 years?
I think for this year, we're going to see a bit more dramatic ratio, which I will actually say 80-20. I feel we were gonna see more in person this year across the board. Different region, different country around the world might facing a little bit different in terms of timing. But if you are able to meet, I think most of the option will be in person. It's simply because they don't have that option before. But I think moving into actually, in sometimes it might be faster. I think for North America, we're gonna see this faster than other region is the coming back of virtual. It's just because they already have the in-person. So now let's talk about the real question is, do I want to stay in person or do I want to go back to virtual? I think the fact that US just raised their interest rate yesterday, that caused a big noises in the market, and people are predicting they are going to continue raise up. There are a conversation about potential recession coming up, plus the conflict around the world in Europe and all the other regions. I do see that there are going to be ongoing challenge for business travel, and that directly result in a lot of the events that that are looking for people to travel national-wise or international-wise. So if you are a planner who are in this space, it's very important to make sure you have a digital strategy. If you are a planner because I know a lot of the audience in the room, they are more community-based or regional-based, you might experience that less. But you are going to experience an increase of your expense and budget because of the inflation and also because of the supplier shortage, right? So that also means your revenue are shrinking. So it is important to have those in mind. I think moving up in the next 3-5 years, I will see a more increase on virtual. I don't really know what the percentage yet because I feel we are still a bit in the
Come on,
mix.
Shawn.
Yeah.
You have to give a number. You have to predict the number, Shawn. Come on. I can't let
I
you
will.
get away without saying a number. Come on.
No, I agree. I will like to say in the next 3-4 years, we probably will see a moving target, which is from 80 in person, 20 virtual to slowly kind of closing the gap. I don't think it will be right away to be 50-50, but I do see the potential they will eventually in a 3-5 year term.
Gotcha. Thank you for that, Shawn.
You're welcome.
Completely agree with you, of course. It's all fact-based. Thank you for joining us today on the next big thing. Shawn, when you come over, we'll go for a ride in my
I love that, Jeeves. Yes,
awesome,
for sure.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Oh, almost dropped it. Shawn, thank you, audience. Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next time. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Thanks, everyone.
Have a good one.